Hope everyone's doing well out there. We are doing another pellet test today, guys. It is the RWS Super-H-Point. Now, guys, if you don't know, RWS is a quality brand of pellet. Everyone knows them for their pellets. They're a standard in the industry, especially for target shooting, if you like that type of stuff. And today we're doing a 22 caliber review, or a 5.5 millimeter, again, of one of their famous hollow points. And as you can see, this is the general shape right here outlined on the tin. It's almost like a wad cutter front there, but as you can see with the actual pellets I have out, then it has a very nice wide hollow point cavity. Okay, these are 14.2 grains, or 0.92 grams. Okay, so these would definitely be on the medium to light end of a 22 caliber pellet. Okay, definitely not heavy whatsoever. And the other thing about these is that, in my opinion, before we even get started with the actual test, I'll tell you guys straight up, these are a great pellet for people who have lower powered air rifles but still want to get performance out of their 22 caliber hollow points. Let's say if you're using a 22 caliber pistol, or you just have an air rifle that is not as powerful as the high power PCP rifle, or maybe a really high power break barrel. These are also, in my opinion, these are great pellets for hunting birds, because again, they have this very wide but shallow hollow point, so it does not take much to get these to start expanding. Okay, and the lead alloy is not overly hard, and it has a reinforced skirt, so you won't find many of these pellets in your tin that are deformed. You know, to give you a good comparison, I'm sure many of you have shot Crossman hollow point pellets or Crossman pellets, and Crossman pellets have a very thin skirt that often you'll find dented or deformed skirts, whereas you can tell this is a nice robust skirt. And in my rifle, which is a 2250 Crossman variant, these engage with the cylinder and rifling very well. You can feel it when you push them in. They're just the right size. They're not too big, not too small. Of course, that's going to depend on your particular barrel and rifle. Again, RWS is very well known in the industry. They make great quality pellets. The RWS Hobby pellet, which is a wad cutter, is one of the most famous target shooting plinking pellets around. So we're going to be shooting these into 10% ballistic gelatin. We'll be taking two different shots, one at 500 psi and one at 2000 psi. Hopefully, the idea is just to replicate different ranges and different power levels of guns, so that we can see how the hollow point performs at a very high power and then at a lower energy. We will be shooting the low power first at 500 psi, and then of course we'll be pumping the gun up to 2000 and taking a shot into the gelatin at 2000 psi. Okay, and it's just bare gelatin, no bone simulation, again, because in my opinion, these hollow points are really going to excel, from my past experience with them, at things of, you know, like in bird nature, maybe like you're hunting small lizards, small iguanas, but things that don't have extremely tough skin and heavy bone. Okay, these are a light pellet. They're not going to have as much mass. Of course, we'll see what happens with the ballistic test and how they perform. But yeah, guys, so we're going to take two shots, see how it goes, and yeah, let's do it. All right, guys, so that was the first shot with the RWS Super-H-Point. As you can see, that was an awesome shot. We had full penetration of the block, and not only that, it looks like it fragmented, left us part of the hollow point behind, and as you can see, went into the backstop. Ooh, that's gonna be cool to see how deep it went into there. It looks like the base continued on, and you can already see Nice little expansion damage right there. Very nice. And again, this is a 7.5-inch block. That was at 500 PSI, or about 600 probably. All right, we're gonna do a shot at 2000 now. Some guys, that was the second shot. That one was at 2000 PSI, like I said. And I don't know if you can tell, but this wound cavity is definitely a little bit bigger. We have a shard of the pellet right there in the wound channel. And again, just like the first shot, it penetrated all the way through and hit pretty much exactly where the other one. So both the bases of the pellets from the two shots are lodged in the backstop. All right, we're gonna take a more detailed look at these wound cavities, and then we'll dig out the pellets and talk about the results. All right, guys, we are looking here at the first wound cavity of the first shot. This was taken at about 500 PSI. You can see there's the initial entry point right there. Nice little wound cavity. I'll try to get a top view of it. So probably about 1 inch long. Continues after that, it calms down a lot. As you can see, there's a little bit more wound cavity right there that continues on, and then it just kind of turns into a streak. But we do know, and there's a little bit more, it was cutting all the way through because it was dragging this huge fragment with it before it finally broke off here, probably right at the 7-inch mark. As you can see, at this power level, these super hollow points just literally implode and do quite amazing things. And that base just continues on like a little penetrator core. And then again, it went into the backstop there. So this was the first wound cavity. Very cool. Full 7.5-inch penetration. You can see more of that slicing action right there. Super cool. Another view of that. Awesome. All right, let's look at the second shot. We're now looking at the second shot here. And as you can see, this shot was done at 2000 PSI. This wound cavity is definitely a little bit bigger and longer. You can clearly see there. This wound cavity, even though it calms down a lot, but you can clearly see that slicing and dicing action. It's even twisting as that pellet twists from the rifling. Little fragment right there that it let go of. And this probably is about 2 inches right here. And then again, we come along, still see some damage going on from it dragging the fragmented hollow point, and then it continues out of the block. I did dig out the cores from the clay, and on the second shot, there was a large lead fragment stuck with the base, but it had pretty much broken off. So with the first shot, the fragmented lead hollow point head broke off. This one, we had partial fragmentation, and then the fragment fully broke off once it hit the clay block. But I'll give you a top view of it here. You can see just massive. If you're wondering what those little specks are, those are pieces of lead that sunk to the bottom. This is the bottom of the block we're looking at right now. So when I molded it, they just sunk there. But anyways, there's a really great view of it. And then if we, again, compare right here, you can see that the overall, this one was just a shorter and more refined wound cavity. This one is just definitely a little bit more explosive, as you can see there. So definitely a difference in energy there. And if you saw in the video, the block did a nice jump. And yeah, so let's look at the bases that and the leftover fragments. And let's talk about the results, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's go. All right, so that was a really cool test. I think things turned out pretty interestingly. So both shots actually, even though they're at different energy levels and different PSIs, they both performed very similar, and they both performed very well. The second shot at 2000 PSI definitely created a bigger and longer wound channel than the first shot at 500. But both of these pellets, as you can see, completely expanded and fragmented, okay, upon impact. You can see what was the head in the hollow point completely expanded and turned into a large lead fragment. As you can see, it just peeled out. And as it did that, traveling through the ballistic gel, they both created some pretty nice wound cavities. And even as they went through the entirety of the 7.5-inch block, both of them, they continued to cut deep into the gel because of these large fragments that were being dragged along with them. Now, the first shot left its fragment in the block and then hit the clay backstop. They both only penetrated probably about only 1/4 of an inch into the clay, so they definitely stuck into it, but they really didn't have too much power exiting the block. And the second shot, the lead fragment was found with that inside the clay block. And as you can see, after hitting the ballistic gel, what is left is just that base of the pellet. The head is completely gone. It has expanded and pretty much exploded. And then you almost have this penetrating core left. Actually a pretty cool design. I don't know if this was really intended to perform like that. I'm sure in a lower power or less energy capable gun, we would see an intact pellet. But it's pretty cool that even at extremely high power, you still have this base that has a good bit of weight to it. This is, again, because it has that reinforced skirt. So this is where the main bit of weight in that pellet is, where in a Crossman pellet, it's the reverse. The head of the Crossman pellet, or a hollow point or a domed of a Crossman pellet, is the heaviest, and then the skirt is the lightest and thinnest part. This is the reverse. The skirt here is the densest and heaviest part of the pellet, while the head of the pellet is the lightest. And I think, if you're going to compare this to a Crossman hollow point, which I think is within the same realm as this is a much, much better hollow point design. A Crossman pellet is advertised the exact same weight as a 14.2 gram pellet, or grain, 14.2 grain pellet, and you need an extremely high energy factor to get those pellets to expand. I shot them for years into clay, into gel, and never saw any sort of expansion on them until I finally had an extremely powerful pellet rifle that was able to get Crossman pellets to expand. Whereas the RWS Super-H-Point is very efficient. Whether you have a lower power air gun or a high power air gun, I think you're going to get great performance out of these. They're an accurate, consistent, high quality pellet, and as long as you're using them on the proper game, like I said, I think they're best for birds. I think you'll get fantastic performance. I think obviously you could easily take squirrel with these and whatnot. For a rabbit, I would go with something more substantial than 14.2 grains and something with a little bit thicker lead. But I think these are a fantastic hollow point. And if you guys haven't tried these, go ahead and try them. They're very accurate. And RWS, again, is just a super great brand. And hey, this tin design looks freaking awesome. I love the look of the tin, very classy. You got the raised embossed lettering right there of RWS. And guys, we had great performance on the gel. Did you see those wound cavities? I mean, they're just like little explosions when they go into the gel. Again, this is a 14.2 grain hollow point, so it's not going to cause the biggest wound cavity out there. And it is a traditional kind of older design. This pellet has been around for a long time. So what a great contender. Penetrated the full 7.5 inches and then some. So honestly, if you have a high power rifle, this can pretty much, if this is the accurate pellet in your gun, if this is something that's very accurate in your rifle, this really could be an all-around small game pellet. It's very good. It is a lighter pellet, so it's going to be range limited because, when you really reach out there with a pellet, you want something that's a little bit heavier to retain that energy retention, okay? But overall, for most hunting situations, for most pellet rifles, I am sure that this pellet would perform wonderfully. And because that base of that pellet is so dense and thick, no matter what you hit, I think you're going to get adequate penetration and effect as long as you're able to put that shot where it needs to go. And thanks to the fact that RWS makes quality pellets and they're accurate, I think these are a great hunting pellet, and I'm really impressed with the performance. I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the RWS Super-H-Point. It's a fantastic pellet, and as you can see, man, it really did a number and really exploded. So this is a true hollow point pellet. Highly recommend these over like a Crossman hollow point or something like that. And yeah, give them a try. Let me know what you think of these pellets. I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks again. Safe shooting. Have fun.